So some more details have come out. Some more details have come out about the Trent and Benson and Brittany, what's the guy? Weston. So Trent Weston is the guy that had killed Brittany Weston, which he admitted to on his 911 tape, but he didn't say anything about shooting and killing Benson Weston, the 8-year-old boy that was sitting in the back seat. The cops are going to pull up on Trent Weston, say he got out of the car and they shot, and then they're going to say that Benson Weston was killed due to multiple gunshot wounds. So let me just tell you about the details, okay? So about 3 a.m., you had officers in Troy. They were sent out to Monadnock Street, Troy, New Hampshire, after Trent Weston, 37, had reported to the police that he had shot his wife. When the police arrived, they found Brittany Weston, 37, dead inside the home due to multiple gunshot wounds to the head. So, shot her in the head. Now that's interesting, because they're just going to say Benson Weston was killed due to multiple gunshot wounds. Period. If you're going to mention that she was shot in the head, why wouldn't you mention that Benson was shot in the head? And if he wasn't shot in the head, why would Trent shoot Benson in a different manner than what he shot Brittany? Had he thought about shooting Benson, why wouldn't he have shot Benson right then and there along with Brittany? Why would he tell him to get in the car? Why would he tell him to get in the vehicle? So a Maine medical examiner confirmed Benson Weston was killed due to multiple gunshot wounds. But he doesn't say that Benson Weston was shot in the head. It also doesn't say whether or not the gunshot wounds are consistent with the gun of Trent or of the Maine and New Hampshire Police Department. At this time, Garrity said all evidence indicates that Mr. Weston is responsible for the deaths of both Brittany and Benson Weston. Further information will be provided if and when it becomes available while protecting the integrity of the investigation. At this time, Garrity said, all evidence indicates that, Trent was responsible for both killing his wife and son. But they're saying at this time, which means, so at a later time you might say something different, and then they also say indicates. Why would you say indicates? If the police had pulled up and then the 8-year-old is already dead, then you would know for a fact. There is no indication. There isn't at this time. It would say definitely 100%. I looked up the word indicate, and it does say point out to show. So all evidence points out, shows that Mr. Weston is responsible for the deaths of Brittany and Benson, but it also says suggest as a desirable or necessary course of action. Suggest. All evidence suggests that Mr. Weston was responsible for the deaths. Well, that's not definite. That's not, this absolutely happens without a doubt. In order to prove your case, you'd have to say beyond a reasonable doubt. You know it to be a fact. Beyond all reason, there is no reasonable doubt. I want to stress this right now. This is Maine State Police Colonel William Ross is saying, I want to stress this right now, that the child's death is not associated with the police officer's use of deadly force. We have information that is not the case. Oh, you got the information? Well, then let us know about the information. You got the information and you just want us to trust your word? Just trust you. Don't believe our own rational, don't believe our eyes, don't believe our own ability to think and our own ability to use logic. Came across actually a really good quote where it says, it was Emerson. He says that God puts an independent thinker out in the world. What did Jesus say? Woe to ye Pharisees. Woe to ye Pharisees who tithe mint and dill and cumin, but you don't give a shit about the important things. You don't care about mercy or faith, and you don't care about justice. You'll go ahead and strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. The only reward of virtue is virtue itself. I'm not sure where this quote is, but God put independent thinkers down here on the planet. So let's think independently. Let's be smart. Let's have some critical thinking skills. An autopsy conducted by the Associate Medical Examiner Abigail Alexander confirmed that Brittany Weston died of multiple gunshot wounds to the head, while the cause of Benson Weston's death was also multiple gunshot wounds. Again, gunshot wounds to the head, just gunshot wounds? Where? In what fashion? There would have to be some kind of coroner's report, right? And then there should be a blood splatter report. And then there should be a dash camera and lapel cameras. There's also a 911 call that hasn't been released. And we haven't seen a close-up picture of the back of the car. You just want to go ahead and put any of these suspicions to rest? Just take a picture of the back of the car. Let us know that none of the police officers shot through the car. He stepped out of the car. He stepped out of the vehicle. So why would you have to shoot the car at all? And he's an 8-year-old boy. You didn't see that an 8-year-old boy was in the back seat? We're also not told how many shots that the 2 New Hampshire cops and the 1 Maine police officer had shot. How many shots did you shoot? The Maine Attorney General's office and Maine State Police continue to investigate the officer-involved shooting that led to Trent Weston's death. So, Andrew Tate, he asked an incredible question. He comes out and he says, where's the evidence? You hear about an accusation and you just run with it. Why don't you ask the question, where's the evidence? That is a good question. That's a good question. You're just going to take the word of somebody and that's it? Oh, just believe me. Why? Well, because I'm telling the truth. Hey! People lie all the time. People lie all the time. Especially authority figures. Remember Bush Sr.? He said, read my lips. No new taxes. Clinton said he did not have sexual relations. Did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. That's my Clinton. Bush too said Iraq, Saddam Hussein's got weapons of mass destruction like 500 times. He's got them. He's got those weapons of mass destruction, including even possibly nuclear weapons. It's going to end in the form of a mushroom cloud, everybody. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destructions. He's got them. And then later on, he's looking under the couch. Well, where are those weapons of mass destructions at? So you're telling me the authorities figures don't lie? When our own presidents lie, Bush number 1, Clinton, Bush number 2, Donald Trump lies all the time in his book, The Art of the Deal. Donald says that he tells people what they want to hear. He's not telling the truth. He's telling people what they want to hear. Ralph Nader has a book, Let's Start the Revolution, and he's just pointing out this report compiled by Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post. And when Donald Trump was president, the 4 years Donald Trump was emperor of the world, the 4 years that we gave Donald Trump all the power in the world, he lied to us 30,000 times. Actually, the number is 30,573 public lies and fake promises compiled by the dutiful Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post. No politician in American history handed an opposing party more brazen and open abuses, outrages, bigotry, and violations of the Constitution and federal laws. Yet the Democrats are so feckless, it wasn't a landslide victory. 30,000 lies. 30,000 lies? That's a shit ton of lies. That's a lot of fucking lying. That's a bunch of lying. I know for a fact that cops lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness. This has been good law since Jesus. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Donald, George, Bill, Joe, George. It's been good law since Jesus. Thou shalt not bear false witness has been good law since Moses. Thou shalt not bear false witness has been good since Hammurabi. Is there probable cause that a crime could have been committed? Well, there's a dead kid. There's a dead boy. But I mean, my God, this is the same culture that killed 200,000 women and children in, what is that, Bethlehem? You know who was born in Bethlehem? Oh my God, Jesus Christ was a Palestinian, and you motherfuckers are sitting there committing a genocide, a slaughter of the innocents. So the empire is committing a slaughter of the innocent. So your Pharaoh, your King Herod, have you not read your Bible? Jesus was born in Bethlehem. If Christians give a shit at all about Jesus, then they would be opposed to this genocide. Jesus was born in blood. He was born out of the slaughter of the innocents. So excuse me for not believing a bunch of human beings because they got a uniform on. Oh, you got a uniform. How does the uniform change the fallibility of man? There's only one perfect being out there, and that's God. The great spirit of ultimate goodness. The great spirit of ultimate goodness is perfect. Only God is perfect. You're trying to tell me some man is not fallible? Bullshit. To err is human. Of course it is. To err is human. That's why forgiveness is divine. To err is human. Also, let's ask this question. Let's presume the worst. You hope for the best, but you expect the worst. You prepare for the worst. Had the 3 cops, the 2 New Hampshire cops, and the main cop shot the car up, then wouldn't it be in their self-interest to lie? Wouldn't it be in their self-interest to cover this thing up? Are bootlickers pretending that somehow a badge prevents a fallible human man who is capable of error? To err is human. Somehow a badge prevents that from happening. It prevents a fallible and malleable man to make a mistake. Somehow a badge prevents a man from making a mistake. A uniform doesn't change the fallibility of man. There's nothing about a badge that stops the fallibility of man. Jesus Christ was crucified on the cross. And for what? When Pontius Pilate asked the crowd, did they want Barabbas or Jesus to be freed? The crowd said Barabbas. And they said, well, why do you want us to crucify Jesus? What did he do? What was his crime? What was his crime? And they didn't give it the shit. They said, crucify him, crucify him. It didn't fucking matter what he did. He stepped on the toes of the authority figures. The crowd wanted some blood. And this American society has crucified Abraham Lincoln, JFK, Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy. And we still don't know who killed JFK. Our own government since 1963 hasn't released the JFK files. JFK's head goes back into the left. Back into the left. That's on camera. That's an objective fact. That's an objective truth. His head went back into the left, which means the shooter came from the front and to the right. I mean, my God, if we can't even figure out who killed our president, what chances do any of the rest of us have? So an 8-year-old boy has gunshot wounds, not consistent with the same way that Brittany was shot. He didn't mention that he had shot him on the 911 tape. He brought him with him. He's in the back seat of the car. So he didn't shoot Benson the same time he shot Brittany. If evidence comes out that says that they're innocent, I'll give them all the credit in the world. But until we see the evidence, the 911 tape, the blood splatter report, the camera, the dash cameras, the lapel cameras, the coroner's report, the 911 call hasn't even been released. What did he say? Let's hear what he said. And just give us a close-up picture of the back of the car. Just give us a close-up picture of the back of the car. There's no bullet holes going through the back of the car. So it's impossible. It's impossible for those cops who had shot and killed Trent to have also have shot Benson. There's only 2 options here. It's either heads or tails. It's either A or B. It's either Trent killed him or the 3 police officers killed him. Those are the only 2 options. And it should be really easy to prove. So until they give me evidence, which you should always ask that question, what's your evidence? What is your evidence? Believe your words? Do you have any pictures? I mean, an eyewitness statement is something, so why don't we hear from an eyewitness? Let's hear from a police officer who was actually there at the scene. They just want to tell us, oh, they got information. Oh, you got information at this time that indicates that Benson wasn't or was, it indicates at this time you have the information. Okay, Colonel William Ross, tell us what that information is. And who's the guy that shot him? Who's the guy that shot Trent Weston? There is one guy. We got the name of the Maine trooper somewhere. Craig Nielsen. Maine State Police Trooper Craig Nielsen. Nilsen. Craig Nielsen was there. So let's hear from Craig Nielsen. He was there. He saw what happened. They shot Trent and they shot at his body, and that's all they did. They didn't shoot the car up. They didn't shoot the car up. They only shot the guy. The guy stumbles over, falls into the river. End of story. Okay, that's an eyewitness testimony. That's better than what they're doing now. Instead of they filed a report, they took all the cameras and they did all this stuff internally. Apparently there's still a attorney general. The attorney general's office and the Maine State Police continue to investigate the officer-involved shooting. So they're still investigating it. So when the evidence comes out that says that they're innocent, and I'm not even saying prove to me beyond a reasonable doubt, because if you have a picture of the back of the car, is there some way that it's possible they could have shot? I don't think so. Unless the 8-year-old got out of the car, they would have had to have shot through the car. The bullet hole would have had gone through the window, or had to have gone through the metal, which that's probably not true, so it would have had to have gone through the window. And then with it going through the window, then it might have got the 8-year-old boy. The 8-year-old boy, Benson, who was sitting in the back seat of Trent's car. Do we not care about the life of children? I mean, Christians go on and on about being pro-life. How is any of this shit pro-life? How is the massacre of Palestine pro-life? How is it pro-life? It's not. And Christians, they're killing Jesus Christ. You would think if there's one person in the world that Christians would give a shit about, it would be the Palestinians. It would be the people of Bethlehem. There's also Christians that's in Palestine who's getting their houses destroyed. So don't think it's just the brown Muslims who's getting the raw end of the deal. So there's a coroner's report. There's a blood splatter report, dash camera, lapel camera, 911 call, close-up picture of the back of the car, and we can hear from that Craig Nielsen. This is the evidence that I would like to hear. This is the evidence that until I hear any more evidence, I'm going to walk away being like, shit, did they fucking kill that kid? Did they kill that boy and they're fucking covering this shit up? They're taking all the cameras and all the work and they're taking the damn car. Now all the shit's gone. It's almost like you need an independent investigator. You need a YouTube. You need somebody there that just films everything and then gives it to the public. Because this shit, they were there. They took everything. Don't worry, everybody. They took all the evidence and destroyed it and burned it, and they're not going to release the JFK files. Don't worry, everybody. The government's in control. It's just as they said it was. I'll end it with some quotes here. This is just some Jesus quotes. Woe to ye Pharisees, you hypocrites, who tithe mint and dill and cumin, but you neglect the important things, faith, mercy, and justice. You strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Matthew 23:23. Matthew 23:33. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Mark 5. Fear is useless. What is needed is trust. Mark 7, wicked designs come from the deep recesses of the heart. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from the inside and defile a person. And this is in regard to why don't you wash your hands? Why don't you wash the fruit of the vine? Why don't you wash your hands before you eat? So they're kind of, saying something obvious. Hey, Jesus, you and your disciples aren't washing your hands before you eat. What the hell is up with that? And he's saying, God gave us this stuff. What you put in the body, that isn't what makes you evil. That isn't what makes you bad. what you put in the body, this is God give us this stuff. What we put in the body doesn't go into the heart. It doesn't go into the soul of man. It goes into the stomach. It's not what you put into the body that makes you evil. It's what that comes out of you that makes you evil. Wicked designs come from the deep recesses of the heart. Do I want to read some Emerson? Yeah, I'll read a couple Emerson. Your things are packed away in a saddle, so ride, mankind, ride. I changed that a little bit. Here once the embattled farmer stood and fired the shot heard round the world. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood. Then Socrates and Jesus and Luther, Copernicus, Galileo, Newton. Every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. What is a weed? A weed is just a plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered. Next to the originator of a good sentence is the first quoter of it. Hitch your wagon to a star. No man can have a society upon his own terms. If he seeks it, he must serve it too. Every hero becomes a bore at last. Every man is wanted, and no man is wanted much. It is a high counsel that I once heard given to a young person. Always do what you're afraid to do. The only reward of virtue is virtue itself. The only way to have a friend is to be one. Circles. You should read Circles. I really enjoyed Emerson's Circles. And I want to know the truth. Did the police kill Benson or was it Trent? It's a simple question. It's just yes or no. A or B. Heads or tails.